I mean, he comes from LA and New England, and he's gonna bring some of that swag over here. So, that kind of is what I'm used to is taking control and being a little more pre-snap. Having tools to put my guys in the best position, and that's something that we really didn't work on these last 2 years. But even those principles I learned from, and it made me better because it added a new element to my game. So be able to just get better and learn from what he did with New England and LA will definitely help me because I feel those are two schemes that I'm kind of used to in a sense. Like that's kind of what I ran at Ohio State, what kind of New Orleans does a little bit, and in LA, it's kind of what we ran here these last 2 years. So I'll be able to put my swag on it and have fun with it. And he's all about me taking full ownership and running the show, and that's what I want. So I'm gonna get what I want, and that's really been really cool just to see that he's like bought into me, and he doesn't really know me well yet. So he talked about today having blind trust, and I have a lot of trust in him already. Just how he talks and how he presents in the room and things like that is really cool to see.
Hi, this is Aaron Wilson. The Texans started their off-season program today, and it's voluntary, but of course there's high attendance, including star quarterback C.J. Stroud. This is an important offseason for CJ as he heads into his third NFL season, after which he'll be eligible for a blockbuster contract extension. And money I'm sure the Texans will be happy to pay based on the leap I believe he'll make this season. And I think the collaboration so far between him and offense coordinator Nick Caley is off to a fast start. They're speaking the same language. And I liked a lot of what CJ had to say today, but I think the most important, really salient points were about him and Nick Caley, who brings a background with the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady to his time with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, and that informs the conversations and the strategy and what they can do with the playbook with C.J. Stroud and Nick Caley working in tandem. So you look at where this stands. So far, they're doing the installation of the playbook, and they've had several conversations on the phone. There's only so much you can do until you get out in the field together when you're able to during the organized team activities. But this is the first phase of the NFL offseason. And for CJ, one of the things I really liked hearing, and I think a lot of fans will be excited to know, is him having more ownership of the offense to run the show, as he says, and more pre-snap flexibility than he had under Bobby Slowick. And he praised Bobby Slowick, and he said he really appreciates his time with him. I think there was no criticism at all of Bobby Slowick that you could read in between the lines anyway at all. But that said, CJ is very excited about Nick Caley and likes the respect they have for each other, the kind of conversations they're having. And that's all encouraging news because to me, there's really not a lot more important this offseason rather than the offensive line than the work between C.J. Stroud and Nick Caley. And this is our first chance to talk to C.J. since the changes, including the offensive line. But yeah, primarily getting into what Caley does and C.J.'s reaction to it. He said he's going to be able to put his swag on it. He said that Nick brings his swag to it. He likes his public speaking style, likes the way they, have really a great interaction. And so this is all encouraging to hear between CJ and Nick Caley. And we talk about pre-snap. That means occasionally audibling and changing the play. And that was something that wasn't happening under Bobby Slowick. So this is a fundamental change. And this is what they hope for, the ownership that a Matthew Stafford has or a Tom Brady had in previous offenses that Nick Caley has been a part of. So this is his vision and how he sees C.J. Stroud. And C.J., of course, excited about many things, including throwing the football to Christian Kirk, his new number 2 wide receiver, with Stephon Diggs gone to free agency and Tank Dell out still with a torn ACL, MCL, and LCL and dislocated kneecap, so out indefinitely. Unlikely they get anything from him this season. Most of the reporting things I'm hearing are not this season. But yeah, for CJ, they bring back Gerard Johnson. That was important to him because Gerard's someone he's been working with since he was 16 years old at the Elite 11 camp. So there's some continuity with that. Where there's not continuity is the offensive line. And CJ didn't hide from the fact that he wasn't happy. He was hurt by them moving on from Laramie Tunsil and also releasing Shaq Mason. He called those two of his best friends. But he said he trusts Nick Caserio's plan. He says, Nick, you may not always understand the plan at first, but know that he does have a plan. So he's acknowledging that Nick has the big picture grasp of why they made so many changes to the offensive line. To recap, trading Laramie Tunsil, releasing Shaq Mason, and acquiring Laken Tomlinson, Cam Robinson, Ed Ingram, and Trent Brown to bolster the offensive line, which will be under the direction of Cole Popovich and Nick Caley, two former New England colleagues, two disciples of Dante Scarnecchia, one of the most revered offensive line coaches of all time in NFL history. So changes afoot with the offensive line that will impact CJ. And, CJ, definitely says he trusts Nick Caserio and what he's doing and his, goals for the offense. And, we're going to hear from it. I'm going to, of course, have sound here from CJ. And so you'll hear from CJ in some clips that I'm going to attach to this video. And, so continue to hear more from the Texans as they go through this phase of the offseason program, including a separate video that we'll have with Will Anderson Jr. Don't miss that. There's going to be a lot of really interesting things that came from the conversation with Will Anderson Jr. today at NRG Stadium. So I got a chance to ask some questions with Will and CJ. And yeah, as always, great to talk to those guys. And 2 Pro Bowl selections. And in CJ, Offensive Rookie of the Year previously. And Will Anderson Jr., Defensive Rookie of the Year, as well as the Pro Football Writers of America selection for NFL Coach of the Year 2 years ago, D'Amico Ryan. So yeah, a lot going on at NRG Stadium. Of course, this is the week of the draft. And we'll have even more coverage of the draft here on the channel and on my social media and at www.click2houston.com and at KPRC2 on television with Randy McElroy and R. Alexander. But yeah, this is just a chance to kind of touch base. A few other tidbits on CJ. He had a very public interaction at the Rockets game with Steph Curry. He's known Steph for a little while, and they have a lot of admiration for each other, a lot of respect for each other's games. So I know some Rockets fans maybe didn't love seeing that, but remember, CJ is from California, and a lot of it's just as athletes showing love to other athletes, that kind of thing, where Steph is one of the clutch performers, great clutch performers of this era of professional sports, and someone that CJ looks up to. Pretty good role model, I would say, Steph Curry for CJ Stroud. And just a few other things with CJ and looking at his offseason. We didn't really specifically address this, but I want to. You notice he hasn't been doing a lot of media. He's just kind of kept his head down. He's been working hard. He's not seeking a lot of things. There were a lot of things that people wanted him to do after such a great, historic rookie season. And he did them. They ask you to do an interview. They ask you to do an appearance, all those things. I don't think that's why his season wasn't what it was as a rookie. I think that any regression comes from a lack of protection, a lack of vision, a lack of adjustments. I'm not saying he's faultless, because he's not. He would be the first to tell you that he's not. But I do think that contributed heavily to what happened in year 2 of the C.J. Stroud era. And I think that year 3 could be his best season, just as long as they get a good offensive line plan and personnel in place, and probably some more help at wide receiver and an ability to use the tight ends more, which is something about Nick Caley's offense. Look at Rob Gronkowski. Look at what they did with Tyler Higbee with the Rams. So he's got that good background with the tight end position, having coached the spot before, coaching a Martellus Bennett and a Rob Gronkowski, working with some, interesting characters there, talented players. So, yeah, I like the vibe that you could have between CJ and Caley. And to me, the most overriding part of the conversation today at NRG Stadium with CJ is him and Caley and what that could be like as they work together. Again, this is just early stages, but encouraging signs as they go forward. Thanks for viewing, and look forward to you, tuning in to more videos, and appreciate everybody that's helping make this a fast-growing channel, the fastest-growing channel in the last 6 months here in Houston for the Texans. So, yeah, thanks. Appreciate you guys, and let's just keep building it together. Thanks. Bye.
Bobby's taught me a lot about just, like ownership, taking real ownership on your job and making sure that, you know, like you're doing what you need to do, play in and play out. And that's something I think that I got better at as I kept going, like learning what everybody's doing. You know, he challenged me on that a lot. Motions and different formations and just all the nine. And I think it's just cool just to have, you know, somebody who, you know, came from San Fran and came here and learned more, and to see him open up our second year and to see him try to, you know, like learn new things and stuff, it was dope to see. So, you know, I'm always gonna be a fan of Bobby Sloag, and you know, I think he has a lot of great things that he will do in his career in coaching, and I'm excited to see. So, yeah, man, I'm you know, just really appreciative of our time together, you know, and definitely rooting him on.
Growth in terms of leadership and your teammates, and D'Amico talk about that, how you're the leader. Where do you hope to lead this team, and where do you feel like the team is right now? As you know, obviously we're in the off season, nothing games or anything, but just kind of where you want to take this thing.
Yeah, you know, for me, I always believe in just servant leadership, serving in any way I can. And like I told y'all before, my coach in college, Coach Fitch, taught me the most important job, the only job really quarterback has, is to make everybody around him better. Whatever that looks like, that's what I want to do. And you know, it's been nice. You know, now I feel like I got another year under my belt, more experience. You know, more comfortability with just how the NFL works, how the league works, how the city works, how everything. You know, just being a quote unquote quarterback in the NFL is, you know, it's something that no one can teach you about. You got to experience it. You got to make mistakes. You got to fail. You got to do good. You got to do bad. And, so that's what I plan to do, is just use those experiences to help others and you know, be a servant to one another, and you know, to help. You know, it says in the word that iron sharpens iron, so another man sharpens another. So that's what I plan to do.
Since you were in the building,
you stay connected, but it's just different. I'm not being in the same building and stuff, but man, he can call me anytime. It's my brother for life, and I'm super proud of him, just the man he's become, the man of God first and foremost, and just, you know, that leadership that he's brought. I remember him being like his #1 recruiting receiver coming in at our school, and like, you know, and he came in with just wanting to work, and so I know that he'll do the same thing, you know, coming to the league, and he's gonna have no problem adjusting. I think it's very important. You know, Stroud is somebody who is, you know, been with me since my rookie season, but also, you know, known me since I was in high school. I was like 16 years old. So for him to, you know, be here and see me in those different lights and those different points in my life has been cool. So I think it's be great for him, you know, for him and Nick, because, you know, I mean, Stroud is specialized in quarterbacks, and I think Nick is going to lean on him a lot in that area, and he's going to give him a lot more responsibility, which I think Stroud is due for, and I think he's going to do great with it. And I told him, man, he's one of the best coaches I've ever worked with, and just the way he thinks, the way he operates, you know, the fact that he played, and really just, you know, just a human being he is. And I'm excited to see him elevate just as a coach, and to be, you know, more hands-on is going to be amazing.
C.J.
Over an hour, he was just giving me the game, and just really like pouring into me as probably a vet did him. And you know, just for him to take out that time, it meant a lot. You know, I was actually, me and my brother actually went to a Game 7 when they played the Clippers. I think it was his first time like doing this, and I remember I told him that. He was like, bro, it's just, for him it was cool. I think for him to hear that too, that like, you know, people just, you know, are in awe of what he does, but for him to even like recognize me, or, you know, just to show love was amazing. And it's crazy just to see in person how good he is, you know, just but it's another person, you know, that take with the talent that God has gave him, and you know, is really developed that through training and through skill development and things like that, and working on his body. I didn't know he was that, like, he swole. So like, just how he take care of his body, like all those things that I can tell, you know, he's, you know, in the back end of his career, but he's playing as best as he ever has. So it was just dope to kind of just, you know, talk to him after the game. For him to, like, he ran by me and, you know, was like talking, but it was just dope. And I think, you know, I'm definitely trying to get back in the building side of things. And, you know, I think something I learned about Nick is that he has a plan. No matter what happens, he always has something up his sleeve. So of course, sometimes we don't know what that is, and but you just have to have trust, and that's something that I've just, you know, we actually talked about today, having blind trust and, you know, having earned trust. And for Nick, I mean, he's gained my trust in both areas. So I'm excited, but, you know, I'm always going to be best friends with these guys and rooting them on, and, you know, I still talk to them daily. So
You talked a lot.
yeah, you know, it's exciting. You know, it's something that I've learned is you don't ever get comfortable. Just you got to be able to adapt and change and upgrade. Like every year the iPhone upgrades. You got to be able to upgrade like that. So that's something that I think that we'll do. Personally, for me, myself, that's a goal of mine, is to get better in things that I need to get better in, also, polish those things that I'm good at. But yeah, it's exciting having new guys, different, everybody's different, so new personalities, new mindsets, and just really having one common goal and the same, same goals, I think, at the end of the day is what creates that winning program and that winning tenacity that we're all looking for. So yeah, I'm excited, to be able to play against him. Last 2 years, he's, somebody that, you definitely got prepared for if you're playing against him now. It's the other side where, we get to work together, somebody who I've heard amazing things, Mikado being from Texas A&M, and being with him there, saying, that he's a great person. That's all I've seen, being on the phone with him, texting him. Now meet him in person for the first time, other than, being opponents. But yeah, man, he brings a tenacity, a raw ability just to run routes, feel the game, yak, run after catch. And just, I think he's a very polished route runner and a leader, which is something that, I'm very excited to work with him about things. But, just more like filling each other out as people, seeing where he comes from, he being from Canton, not far from Columbus, where I played ball in college. And there's a lot of similarities when it comes to like family, just how much we love our families and how much we love ball. And, he's very personable, very somebody that I've found respect for already, just on how he approaches the game, how much he loves it. So yeah, just very introductional, but also as we come into OTAs, and we've been able to get on the phone a couple times and talk about certain things. It's been nice. So.
What are your thoughts back with the guys? And Will was just talking about how good it feels, the camaraderie and things you guys build at this time. Is this kind of where it all starts, the building the 2025 team?
Most definitely, yeah. You gotta. I think these last 2 years were, very foundational, and to have wins under our belts was great. But, just learning from those years and, pushing our agenda and our foundation, which is that swarm mentality, on the new guys and the guys who are coming in to, year 2 or year 3. So it's exciting, man, just to get another year under our belt. And, it's always cool to see you guys, new faces. And, it's a better feeling being in the locker room. Not just on your own. So yeah, it's been dope.